Hello, good morning, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and disembodied hands, mostly Quindy, sometimes Justin, and occasionally John. Hi, guys. Shadow Raven, spreading the memes. You know those are contagious, right? Hello. Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday indeed. Today is when the initial invites for the Overwatch 2 beta drop. So David and I are like going this, but we really know we probably not going to get in, but we're still going like this. So yeah. Let's hit our little happy little cam thing. I did manage to, I have an initial like resin cast and the pieces are like a little dicey, but I managed to make this wing fit onto the dragon yesterday. Just to confirm that I could actually fit it onto the dragon. There's still the problem of having no arms. But once we get the eyes and the mouth done here, we're probably gonna actually attach the dragon head to the dragon. I need to figure out what I'm doing for the underbelly, because these parts need to be repainted. Probably, I don't know, if I go traditional Larry Elmore, I'll go with like a tan or a beige, right? It is not Taco Tuesday for me, sadly. Although I guess it could be, but we scored a tremendously on sale prime rib on Monday at the grocery store, or Sunday at the grocery store. Because post-Easter, right, they were selling the last of the prime ribs, and most of them were cut up into ribeyes, but one of them was not, and it was the perfect size. So yeah, so we had prime rib, haha, decadent us, on Sunday, and now I'm going to make prime rib soup. So that's what tonight's dinner is going to be. Also, last night, I made cheesy biscuits, as in, like, you know, look-alike Red Lobster biscuits. Oh my god. It's a good thing I don't make those regularly, because we would eat all of them. But we each have a cheesy biscuit left to have with our prime rib soup, so I figured that'd be pretty good. No dragon heart. We just haven't actually attached the head. That's it. It's also a be-winging, technically, if you're going there. All right, so we need to finish the mouth, because we haven't highlighted it. We've only really kind of proof of concepted our membrane there. Let me get in focus. There we go. So we've managed to kind of work it up there, because I wanted to make sure that it worked with the other colors. Right now I think that it is. So, hey cousin. Teriyaki Tuesday for who? This is the only time I've made those biscuits, Shadow Raven, although I know that I've known that I have the power. It's just too many calories. Too many calories, too many carbs, although I did make them half with low-carb flour, but yeah, because they're too good. We would just sit and eat them. David knows it now, too, after he had one last night. He's like, I really want another one. You can mutter about them if you want, Cornico, but it's hard to make them gluten-free. It's not hard to make them gluten-free, but it's hard to make them low-carb. So I don't do proper biscuits. If I want a proper biscuit, I will go to a place that can make me a proper biscuit. And are you talking about cookies anyway? Are Scottish people, like, are they still on that whole thing where a biscuit is a cookie? Well, alrighty. So let us get, first of all, our dark brown, because I want to block in these top spikes in a darker color, because they're going to come up like the teeth. Then we're going to mix up our red once we've got that, because remember we need to mix a little bit of brown into that as well. And then we will finish highlighting our mouth, and then we'll do our eyeballs. We'll do dragon eyeballs today. I have some ideas. Alrighty. I think that I used blood red with a bit of eyeside brown in it, as I recall, and a little bit of walnut as well. Biscuits are cookies, scones are biscuits, and yeah. But I love scones. If you can dunk it in your tea, it's a biscuit. I see. Yeah, I speak American. Yeah, I mean, I do watch Great British Baking Show, I do understand that, biscuits are cookies, hypothetically. However, here in this world, I guess I made what you would call cheddar scones then. Garlic cheddar scones. I would not dip them in tea. But they were super tasty. I mean, any fan of the Great British Baking Show can translate, right? We've all learned how to speak Paul Hollywood. Let's see, a little bit of brown. So when you're doing, as I mentioned before, but this was a while ago that we painted the first part of this mouth. So whenever you're doing a realistic pink for a creature's mouth, you want to add a little bit of brown to it. And that's just the effect of the skin, which is actually kind of yellowish, going over the blood, which is reddish. So essentially, that's why our gums are the pink they are, and why we aren't bright pink. We're not like screaming eyeball hot pink as far as our gums go. It tends to be more organic color, so you add a little bit of brown. In this case, I'm using Oxide Brown, which is one of the Kickstarter colors from Bones 5. You could also use something like Ruddy Leather. I like to use a reddish brown because I like to get those oxide pigments in there. Yeah, it's a cheddar garlic scone. It's there's a seafood franchise over here that made them kind of famous. Now even our local like high-end seafood restaurant makes tiny ones for the appetizers. I love biscuits and gravy, but you would call them scones and gravy. Buttered scones and gravy, which really is what they are. I mean, it's a really soft scone, right? Or sometimes they're more crispy, but BCA pink is not actually a great match for this. So BCA pink has no brown in it, but you could make it work by taking it and adding a little brown to it. Add a tiny bit of Ruddy Leather to it, for example, or a little bit of the Oxide Brown. But you don't want to use that straight up unless you're looking for a very unnatural, like demonic maybe. For demons and really like creatures that you want to look unnatural and artificial, then I would do it, but I don't want my dragon to look artificial. So I'm going with the more traditional. And then I'm going to pop a drop of white in there. Yeah, biscuits got expensive because cheese is expensive, and people would just sit there and eat them, right? And then they would just get their dinner to go. They would come for the biscuits and eat them all, and then yeah. But now I can make my own, and I made them lower carbs. They were only about 12 grams of carbs each, which is pretty good. So we've got about 6 drops of water in here. I'm adding, 6 drops of paint. I'm adding 2 drops of water just to thin it out. Kind of check my color. I want this to be a dark pink, ideally. May need to add 1 more drop of white. No, that's about right, actually. I want this to be my gums shadow color. So you can see what color that is. It's not a super bright pink. Then I'm going to bring 2 big brushfuls of that over to the next well and drop 2 more drops of white in it. I went to keto and dropped 60 pounds causing trauma, so I am a low-carb girl forever. I went off keto when I came out here to live with David because he is not keto, but low-carb I could cook for both of us, so. I used to be like a horrible carb hound. Like, that was what I wanted. But it was not good for my waistline or my health. So when I had to switch diets because of health concerns, I went that way. And it works really well for me, I gotta say. I feel better than I have ever had in my entire life. Like, I probably feel better now than I did in high school. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it was a few years ago, but I was super psyched. Not everybody can do keto and not everybody does well on keto, but if you are trying to lose weight, I found it, if your problem is like, just that you always like feel like you need a snack and so you end up overeating, I found that keto was very effective for that because it stabilizes your blood sugar, which tends to make you crave things when it spikes. Yeah, agreed, Grey Wolf. Agreed. I used to. I loved crackers. crackers. It was all about freaking crackers. There were certain pastas that I like, but in general, I don't miss it. I let myself have some really good fresh baked bread every once in a while if we go to a restaurant with amazing bread, but otherwise, I could do without. I don't, Zeistis. I don't, like, if I'm going to do, like, a sandwich type thing, I would always just do lettuce wraps, because I actually really like lettuce wraps if the iceberg is really crispy. I'd use, like, tasty mustard mayonnaise sauces and, do that kind of thing. Horseradish. But yeah, I don't miss bread. Like, I just don't. I was never a big sandwich person to begin with. That said, they have put out some nice keto breads lately, made with like almond flours and stuff. So I don't know, I haven't tried them, but technically you could have a keto sandwich now. It's not really, as long as you get your protein somehow, Kerniko, and you don't need to go. Don't think of low carb as high protein for one thing. It's not. It's high fat, high healthy fats. So essentially, like, most of what I eat is actually not meat on low carb. Like, I have an egg in the morning with some oatmeal, a very small portion of oatmeal, and with coconut oil mixed into my oatmeal. And for lunch, I eat a big salad. So the salad dressing has olive oil. And so that's, that gives you a lot of calories because oils are high calorie. And I have some smoked salmon with that, or some chicken, depending on what I've got. You could substitute like soybean, like tofu, beans in general. There's anything you can do on a vegetarian diet for protein you can do on a low carb diet. Just watch. Beans can be really high carb, and that's why I tend to say tofu might be a little better. Just watch the amount. But if you're not doing keto, then low carb is like, you have some really high leeway for that. Because like you could go up to 100 grams of carbs a day, no problem, and you'd still be much lower than the average person. So yeah, just things to think about. Like I said, it's not for everybody, and some people don't do well on it. So, but giving it a try, I think, is never harmful. If you're supposed to limit fats, then low carb is not the diet for you. Either that, or, some doctors do be aware. Some doctors think that keto and low carb in general are kind of trash diets. I ran into like a weird dichotomy with that when I was having all the surgery. Because my surgeon was like, you're doing keto, awesome. And my like GP was like, well, I'll look it up and research it. And my GP's main nurse was like, that's all just bunk. Even after I lost the 60 pounds, she was still like, I don't know. So yeah, so you're going to run into a bunch of different opinions on the web. And I think it's just that different people react differently. So as is always the case, just like with painting, not everybody works. Not everything works for everybody, right? But yeah, I did very well on it, so I always suggest trying it if your particular health restrictions can handle it. You just never know. I never would have thought I could do it. I'm kind of surprised too, Kariniko, just because low carb and keto tend to be very anti-inflammatory diets, which is usually good for most modern health issues. But yeah, just sometimes it just doesn't. Maybe it doesn't work with what you have going on. So either way, tasty prime rib soup tonight and cheddar biscuits is what it's all about. Sorry, cheddar scones. Let's just we'll be proper with our United Kingdom friends. Cheddar scones. It is more what they are anyway. It does seem more accurate. And I do love scones. I love me some scones. So I'm going to highlight right here where the teeth come out, just to make those, see how that makes the gums stand out? Let's run this back so that we can get closer. So now I do have, I did make a shadow here that I mixed the walnut into my dark pink. Otherwise the dark pink is pretty vibrant, but I'm not going to totally like mix that walnut into all of my dark pink, because if I do want these gums to be a little bit brighter pink, then I can glaze with that dark pink. And I can always do the spot mix that I did here. You can see I mixed up this color for shading, and it's just this with a touch of that. And I do this a lot on my top of my oil palette. I do a lot of like kind of little spot mixes. If I just need them for a second or two, I can work with them while they're wet. So kind of working like it's a wet palette, but not having it like stay on the wet palette. But yeah. Alrighty, so yeah, when we mix in more of this, here I'll show you how much brighter it is. So when we grab this, it's very strawberry, and so if I bring that in, it's going to be a really, see how that punches the saturation up because it's a much more vibrant pink than the other pinks here. So you gotta be cautious with it depending on how bright you want the mouth to be. You don't want the mouth to distract from the rest of the dragon, though that's not much of a danger here given how bright colored the dragon is. So I do think maybe I'll mix up just a small patch of my off pink. Where is my mixing brush? All right, giant mixing brush. Give me a lot of pink and then give me some of this. You don't want to use much walnut. It doesn't take much to make this dark taupe color. Because walnut is really overpowering. So it'll gray out and brown out your pink really fast. So just a little bit. I used maybe like a 4-to-1 balance there, maybe a 5-to-1, just judging from the giant drops of paint and the smaller drop of paint. Whereas I just found my big base the other day, which I had knocked off my thing. So if I bring that in, you can see what color that is. So those are the colors that we've made essentially from, we start with our just base color and then we build a highlight, we build a shadow. Now we've got a triad. And I'm going to mix a lighter pink color now because in doing these gums right here, I decided I need a brighter color because you see how we went up to almost white here. So that means taking another couple of big drops of our strawberry-ish pink and dropping more white into them. When the guidance is contradictory, I find it helpful just to get second and third opinions and to do some research myself. Like I decided to do keto because I had a friend who had a lot of success with it and nothing else was working for me. I also liked the idea of it being anti-inflammatory because my surgeon had already told me to go gluten-free because of my Crohn's diagnosis. So any anti-inflammatory diet, she was like, is going to be good for you. So then the only question was, could I actually eat keto and enjoy it? And the answer for me, luckily, turned out to be yes. And also my body did well on it. So, I mean, you are yourself. And, you know, although you should definitely get professional advice, you also should make your own decisions. It's a hard road to walk sometimes, being a human. All right, I'm going to actually darken down these gums down on the lower part here. I didn't get a very solid coat on them. So let's re-block these in. I mean, the reason that so much medical guidance is contradictory is I think that so many things work differently for different people. And doctors definitely have strong opinions about what works or what doesn't, right? So just like any human. That said, any diet's not a magic bullet. I'm definitely to the point where if I want to lose more weight, I have to actually like cut calories. But I'm pretty happy at the equilibrium I'm at, so. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a hard one. I mean, that's close to, I mean, it's related to Crohn's, which is what I was diagnosed with, right? Red links. So essentially, aim for anti-inflammatory and see what you can do. Some people, though, I know ulcerative colitis is a very different bug, and sometimes you react to different foods that it's just weird. Well, it's kind of like Crohn's, right? Technically, I react to tomatoes, which I guess are inflammatory for some people, like nightshades are, right? So it doesn't make total weird sense, but yeah, just experiment and be patient with yourself and pay a lot of attention to yourself as to how you feel after you eat. That's my best guide. If I eat something and I notice that I'm not feeling great, I make a note. There we go. So I'm taking our shadow color in, and I'm just kind of like breaking up these teeth here. Because just like with your own gums, the gums bulge out a little bit around the teeth. So that's what we're simulating here by putting in those shadows between the teeth down here. I am sorry about your diagnosis, though, Red Links. It is a total drag to have digestive issues. I can speak from experience. That said, just to give you some hope, I totally control mine with diet alone right now. I'm not on any meds except for probiotics. So, yeah. Yeah, I had the most success myself in switching to a high vegetable diet. Healthy fats and vegetables. But what your intestine can tolerate is very individual, so. So I eat a lot of vegetables throughout my day. I use cauliflower rice as a rice substitute. All right, so let's put a highlight in the middle of each of these, and that will further cement that it is bulging out. Now, we can stay a little darker up on top here because the lips are overlapping this, whereas on the bottom I've gotten a little brighter and lighter. That's on purpose. Right, Kreniko. Yeah, well, my intestine decided tomatoes were totally not going anywhere. Definitely not happy. All right, now I'm going to grab some people react to beans too, you know, it's like weird. I'm going to grab this pink again, and I'm going to make an off-white out of it. So this time I'm not going to grab 2 brushfuls of pink. I'm going to just do 4 drops of white and add a tiny bit of pink. And that'll be my top highlight. At that point, what do we have? We have a pentad, folks. We have a 5 colors plus our liner color. All right, so there's our pink off-white. That'll be a nice highlight. Want you to go back to meat, which are weird. I mean, I get it if they want you to have more B vitamins, Kerniko, but there's other places you can get B vitamins too, I think. Aren't there? Isn't that the vitamins chain that's found most in beef or in meat? I don't remember. I'm just a me. What do I know? I know how to paint a dragon head. That's what I know. So on our top highlight, we really just want a tiny spot of it at the outside of each of these gums. What we're simulating here is a bit of like a hot point of light that makes the gums look more wet. You shouldn't really go up to pure white as a highlight on any surface that's not white or near white unless you're trying to suggest that it's shiny. So a spot highlight, as we call it, can help to accentuate the idea that there's moisture on the gums. And likewise over here is why I went up to white on the sides. Right. Right, yeah. That's what I thought it was, B vitamin chains. I was right. Hey, my brain remembered something effective. Amazing. Especially today. I slept wonky, so my brain is definitely not at the tip top of its game. I'm going to put a little bit of highlight on the top here. But again, we've got a little bit of shadow with these lips overhanging. And so I don't want to go too far. I just want to bring out the detail a little bit. We want our dragon to have healthy gums. Yeah, I don't think they're delicious. Like, I was never a huge fan, but I used to like V8. That was actually how I noticed. Like, I noticed that it was reacting badly with me. Is I had V8 and I did not feel well. And then, like, later on down the road, I had a Bloody Mary and it just about made me want to die. So I was like, okay, we're done. We're done with tomatoes. No more tomatoes. Which is annoying because you have to check dishes at restaurants all the time and ask them, are there tomatoes? All right, so let's get the front of these gums. There's very tiny little areas on the front of the gums just to make them stand out a little bit better. Oh, that's good to know. The active form of B12. Okay. Yep. Yeah, that's why I when I do peppers of any kind, I roast them and skin them and remove the seeds. So I can still have some of the tasty with a lot less of the plant protective devices in them. Plus, I love the flavor of roasted peppers, so I'm all about it. But I don't react to them as long as I roast them and deskin them. And at least I can still have tomatillos, so I can have tomatillo salsa. So there is a form of fresh salsa that I can have, which is nice. Because I do love salsa. Although I made pineapple salsa, and that was amazing. So now I have a salsa alternative. And if you guys have not made pineapple salsa, like you should. Like, yum. If you like sweet salsas and if you like pineapples. Fresh pineapple salsa is now one of my favorite things. They were one of my things. They're my Crohn's trigger, Pendrake. That's why we were discussing tomatoes. So now we're going to go and do this on the other side. So we're going to start with our really kind of mild highlight for our first go through. And we're going to make sure that we've got a nice solid coat of the dark pink on the gums. Yeah, same recipe works with peaches, mangoes, and pineapple. I just hate cutting up mangoes, and I love cutting up pineapple, so that's kind of why I've ended up with pineapple salsa instead. But oh my gosh, it's so good. We put it on fish, baked fish. So good. And then we eat the rest on chips. Not very many chips for me. But plantain chips are actually lower carb than a lot of other chips, so I do that. But yeah, I love the pineapple salsa, fruit salsas. So tasty. Hey, Agent. Yeah, I like the fruit. I'm not a huge peach fan, like as far as the fresh fruits go. Peaches are way down on my list, but I do like them cooked in my oatmeal. I put frozen chopped up peaches in my oatmeal before I cook it. I like peach cobbler. I don't know, I just don't like fresh peach that much. But mango and pineapple, I'm there for. Almost got these figured out here. Just putting more highlights around the teeth back here. Got a little bit of highlight there on the bottom now, so we'll go back up to the top with our middle pink. Oh, it's always pure white on these Kodiak. You could technically use bleached linen or linen white. You could use a more yellowy white for this. But in general, once I have my main... Okay, so if I'm doing mixes and I have my main color dialed in to exactly what I want it, there's no reason to use an off-white. There's only pure white. Because if I already know I've got the color dialed in, I don't want any additional pigments in my white throwing it off. Does that make sense? So like once you have a color dialed in and you really like it, there's really no point unless you notice that it shifts weirdly when you start adding your white and you think, oh, I could use a little bit more like warmth, or I wish this was a little more gray, or, you know, whatever. If you can identify the need for another pigment, then you could go up with a off-white that featured that pigment instead. Getting the first highlights on this, if that makes sense. But remember, any non-pure white is going to have other pigments in it, and that's going to interact with whatever color you already have, whatever color pigments you already have in what you're doing. So you have to stop and think about that interaction before you use an off-white instead of a pure white to build highlights, and how it may change. Let's see here. I need a dark shadow there. Since this membrane is separate from the gums, I'm going to block it in with my dark, dark pink. I am going to put a little tiny line back there. Well, pure white will never really, you know, do you wrong on that. Like, it's very intense, but other than that, it isn't gonna cause any problems on its own. In general, anything red, orange, or yellow, or cream, and that includes like most skin tones, like most like medium to light skin tones, and which are usually muted oranges. Any of those can be highlighted with like a linen white, a yellowish white, right? Linen white, bleached linen, no problem. Though they will introduce usually a little bit of brown. Various off-whites have bright brown. 9208. I believe at this point, Pendrake, gosh, I don't know. Because they started out being pure inks, but because of the bleed through, we started like moving them more toward like an acrylic ink type of formulation. And I'm not sure what Reaper we didn't finish that transition before I left. So I honestly can't tell you. They started out being actual inks, but I didn't like the bleed. And by actual ink, you also need to define for me what you mean, because like acrylic inks, like De La Rowney cells, also are not technically actual inks by old school parameters. So like really you have to tell me what you mean. When people ask about inks, I always raise my eyebrows and go, and what exactly do you mean with that word? Because it may not be what I mean with that word. Because De La Rowney inks are not actual inks as they were in the olden days. So I'm doing a little stippling here to kind of break it up and introduce some texture to these tendons. They're over thinning. If they've got chalkiness, they're usually over thinning. Or they've got a weird paint consistency. So I am going to bring in the highlights, and this is going to seem counterintuitive, but I'm going to bring them in more toward the bottom of the tendon here. And the reason is that there's this big projection in the head of scales that is going to shadow the area immediately under it, so that area is going to be darker. Is what easier to do with white paints? Easier to overthin? Yeah, it is, because if you're asking if it's easier to overthin, often it is, because white needs more thinning, depending on what you're trying to do. But because white needs so much more thinning, I think that sometimes people haven't analyzed the sweet spot, and so they just go over. That is a actual traditional ink as far as I know. That's an India ink, right? It is not India ink. India ink is its own beast. Yeah, I like the dark base Talscott because it allows you to make the teeth really stand out. If you just go like pink gums up against tan teeth, it all just blends together, right? So even if I was using tan, I would line with a darker color, but doing the striations not only mimics the way that nails actually grow. There you can see the lines on my fingernails right there. So essentially the striations are there because that's the way that nails and teeth actually grow. They have that irregular surface, and so it is a good way to introduce texture and make things look a little more real and interesting. I'm glad you like them. But yeah, and again, Pendrake, I don't know, because like I said, I was transitioning away from traditional inks because of the bleed inherent in the product, but I'm not sure if Reaper finished that transition or went back on that transition, so that's not a question that I can answer. Eventually, you can ask me about formulations in general, and I'm there, but yeah, with stuff that was kind of transitional, it's hard to say. I will say one thing though, Pendrake, and that is that it still wouldn't be like just black paint, because the transition that I was looking at and prototyping was a transition to a completely different base from our other bases. So it would still be different chemically. Even if the pigments are pigments instead of dyes, it would still be different. Hey, Coolback, how's it going? Thanks. Yeah, we're only got another, we have 3 more days after this to work on Dragon. So I'm going to take my off-white and just hit a little bit here and there. And I want a little bit more here because of the big area I need to get these teeth. Add a little bit of extra. And I'm stippling here for my highlights because I want more interesting texture in the mouth. Be aware that for a good breeder, and all of our breeders are good, you're gonna get on a waiting list, Kodiak. If you tell me where you live, I can make you a direct recommendation as to which breeders are best as well. Like there are some of our breeders who are just really experienced and really superstars. All of us are pretty good, but also be aware, tell your wife there's a lot of socialization with Shilohs because they tend to be a softer temperament dog. It really looks to their human for confidence, and so you got to be there for them. You definitely need to work to make sure your puppy comes out to be the superstar dog it can be. So lots of socialization commitment. Just be aware. Ohio, Indianapolis, or Indy, around Indy, Mindy of Echo Shilohs. Mindy is a pro. She's a vet tech as well. if you contact her, do give her several weeks to get back to you, because she is like, she's been breeding for years and over a decade now, and she's really busy all the time between her real job and her supporting her puppy people. But she is top notch. Her dogs are awesome. She's a very reputable breeder, and because she's also a veterinary technician, she knows all about all of the health stuff. Yeah, definitely. Like, you don't need a trainer. You just need to be consistent, because they're shepherds. They're not German shepherds anymore genetically, but they have that same need for consistency, because you're talking about a super smart dog that's going to be 80 to 120 pounds when it's full grown. So you've got to get the training in there. You've got to be consistent. It's just like with kids. If you can be consistent, half the battle is won. That's what I'm trying to drill this into David right now, because he's never owned a dog before and we're getting a puppy. I'm like, consistency. It's all about consistency. And yeah, I'll be getting the puppy out to do a lot of socialization once we get the puppy. And training. So yeah, it's definitely, when you've got a dog that's that big and that smart. Yeah, Echo Shiloh's Kodiak. So Echo Shiloh's. That's her website. Yeah, she'd be the closest one of our breeders to you, I think. They are wonderful dogs. They're just like not like an out of the box, like it's going to be perfect with no work kind of dog. They're definitely, to build yourself a Lassie or a Rin Tin Tin, you do need to put in the time. But you can get there with Shiloh's. You can get a Lassie. You can get a Rin Tin Tin. They're very empathic dogs. And very intelligent. All right, so we've got those horns blocked in nicely. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's teaching your kids how to be respectful of dogs, and also teaching the dog, making sure that you kind of you're always there. Like with a puppy and children, you always want to be supervising, always. Because little kids they don't understand, right? They don't understand that something might hurt a dog. And stuff like that, and likewise, your puppy doesn't know that, having, come from chewing on her litter mates, if she tries to chew on your kids, that's not good. So yeah, you gotta always supervise and try to teach your children to be respectful of dogs, which is never a loss in my opinion. So yeah, but that said, Shiloh's can be just amazing with children. Like when brought up correctly with them, Shiloh's are almost capable of babysitting. Like they're really, really good with kids. And it's really sweet to watch too. Leo absolutely loved our nieces. Like he absolutely adored them. He would play with them so gently. It was really cute. Kiri really wasn't into kids, but Leo loved them. Yeah. Yeah, Mindy actually really likes the solid black dogs, and so she tries to, she breeds primarily for health and temperament like the rest of us, but she does also enjoy trying to get more solid blacks, which are pretty rare in Shiloh's, actually. Because we prioritize temperament and health over color. Color is the last thing you should be breeding for, essentially, in our ethics. All right, so let's talk about eyeballs. Let's get in. I want to do kind of an orangey red, I think, with the yellow highlight. So let us think about how we want to do this. I have a book about drawing dragons that has some interesting different eyeball ideas. So let me dig out that book. This is the great thing about having my art library right over my shoulder. Yeah, sorry for the puppy tangent. Yeah. Let me find eyeballs. So the book is Dragon Art, How to Draw Fantastic Dragons and Fantasy Creatures. And she has cool comparison things. The thing I like most about this book is it's pretty simple. But she talks about the difference you can get with different kinds of eyes. And here's the picture. I'm going to zoom out and show you guys this. And she talks about different types of head shapes as well, being good, like good or evil dragons, like in our head. So there's her eye thing. Eyes show nature and emotion. Your dragon's eye and the ridge above the eye are very important parts of its character. The slit pupil will make your dragon look more beast-like or evil. The round pupil will give the dragon the most warm, intelligent, and human-like expression. And no pupil will look unemotional, detached, or alien. Can also look just elemental. Like I use like this kind of eye for a dragon that I want to be very elemental looking, where it's like filled with energy and not wanting to suggest too much of a particular personality. So this is a great book for this. And she does talk about head shapes as well. But what do you guys think? Should we do... This is technically... I mean, her character is that she's supposed to be an evil dragon, but we don't have to paint her like that. So what do you guys think? Do you have a preference? This crowd lives for puppy tangents. Speaking of that, our puppy mommy is now ready to be bred. So she should be actually bred within the next couple, like by the end of the week. And then we've got 5 weeks to wait until we find out if she is pregnant. You want evil? Yeah, well, Snake Eye is a slit pupil, right? So yes, you can also go and look for animals like that. The author's name, she goes by Neon Dragon, but J. Peffer. And this was published by Impact. So if you're looking to like draw some dragons, or you just want to like kind of see, she's got some cute creatures in that book. She's got a very cartoon style, but really her animals are pretty cute. So I enjoy that book. I keep it around. All right, let's go for a more wicked dragon then. But let's go for some red. I think I want to start with some magma red, and I want to bring it up with an orange. Maybe we'll start actually with Cavalier, and we'll shade down with magma. We'll bring up our Cavalier with a lighter orange. We could choose Explosion Orange. We could choose Sunrise. Might be the better one. So this actually uses a whole bunch of things. We use a core color, a Pathfinder color, and a Bones color. So this would use like, and it actually does make a great triad, actually. Oh, you own that book? Cool, Kodiak. Yeah, everybody's association will be different, but in general, I think her guideline fits for me. It makes sense that a more human-like eye would bring forth more human-like emotions as far as an emotional response in the viewer. So let's start with Cavalier, because I really love this dark orange. I want the eyes to really pop out, and so I want to use a very different color. And to get these, because the eyes are smaller, to get them to really show up, you want to use brighter colors. So Cavalier is a very bright orange. It's a darker, brighter orange. Make sure you shake it well, as with all colors that are based largely on yellow, orange can separate out. So let us add just a little bit of water. Yeah, I mean, I think I like how she structures her dragons in general. I mean, you can always just study various other artists. Like I grew up studying Larry Elmore's dragons, but using multiple sources to study your dragons is never wrong and can be fun. But I do like that book for the way that she breaks down how the use of specific shapes for the head can give you a more of a good or more of an evil look, right? Or more of a bestial look, or more of a human look, you know. It's a good book. It's a good book. It's at least thought-provoking, even if you don't agree with everything she says, which is the best kind of book, in my opinion. Nobody asks you to agree with everything that a book says. But if it makes you think about things a little bit, so that you figure out what you feel, then that's the best kind of book, in my opinion. I pick up fantasy art books every once in a while just to see, like, just for that. Just to see if they have something to say that makes me think about something in a way I haven't before. So I've done a white undercoat, which is the best. It's the best because now this orange will look really bright going over it. If I hadn't done this white undercoat, the orange would not really carry nearly as brightly as I need it to. And this is somewhat transparent, and I did thin it down, so it's going to go on a little bit thin. I'm going to put 2 coats on. Get the other side. Oh, have fun, Agent. Thanks for stopping by. Let's get our other orange eyeball going on. Remember to be patient and let your eyeballs dry. Because you don't want an uneven coat on the eyeball. Now these will look brighter once we get these horns like darked in, but we want to first finish the detailing, all of this fine detailing. Like the eyes are definitely fine details. And so I'm not going to attach the head until I have these eyes figured out. But then we can attach this head to the body. And after we attach the head to the body, then we can paint the horns. But I don't want to be, because they're the easiest thing to hold, and I don't want to hold the head and rub off paint, I'm going to be, I would rather hold the body at that point, once the finer details on the head are done. So really I wanted the gums, the teeth, even the scales now that I still need to do detailing on. That's not too bad because I can get that with one is attached to the body. All right, so we got a nice bold orange on there now. Let's get some magma red. I want to do just a little bit. Kind of want to do what she did in her book picture, which was to do kind of almost a darkened iris inside of this orange. Like leave the orange on the outside, do kind of a pupil outline with this red, and then go to an even brighter orange inside of that pupil, that iris rather. So let's try that. Got my magma red. And since I want it to be kind of an iris, I'm going to block it in. So I'm going to use this shape round, but then I'm going to go for the slit pupil in the middle. So we're going to get this. Now if I really want to, I can even blend that in by using a little bit of orange to brush over the edge. Hey, Canadian Shock Trooper, we are doing an iridescent, kind of a faux iridescent dragon. It's part of, Reaper's running a Kickstarter right now, Bone 6, and so the dragon is part of that Kickstarter, and so I decided I wanted to paint her kind of a fake iridescence. With eyes this big, you can do a whole bunch of stuff, Kodiak, once you get the brush control. I think I want to blend that in just a little bit. We'll just blend that in. All right, now let's actually use, we need some pure white if I'm going to bring up the inside of that red. We're going to do this on just one side to see if we like it. If we don't like it, it's the easiest thing in the world to repaint over the eye with white and start over. But I'm going to mix up some white because I want to be able to underpaint. Yeah, Reaper's Kickstarter ends at the end of the month, Shock Trooper, and then I'm going to switch back to our normal lineup, which is a whole bunch of different fantasy figures. Though I might throw the dragon in every once in a while if I feel like working on it, so we'll see. Dragons just are very repetitive, so I don't want to sit and like work on the dragon forever to finish it on stream. Because it would just be boring. It would be scales, and then it would be some more scales. It would never end. All right, so then I'm going to come in with some white. I've thinned it 2 to 1. I'm going to kind of go in like right down the middle of this red part. These eyes, they are smaller as far as like dragon eyes go. Like I've definitely painted larger dragon eyes. So I don't know how much I can do in these, but I'm going to try. So first, more orange, and this time a lighter orange. We're going to go with sunrise orange now. So I'm going to do all sorts of colors of orange and yellow in these eyes. So we'll see what I can do. Probably end up refining it a bit. But we'll start with this. Boop. So then this white part gets painted over orange. An even lighter, brighter orange than our previous Cavalier orange. And then fluffy dragon. Make them together on the color wheel, Tal Scott. So in this case, green, you know, blue is one of the colors that is right next to green. You could also do green, yellow. You could do red, orange. I'm also doing some funky things with the iridescence as far as what I'm choosing. The highlight color. But, I mean, if you want to do a 2-color fade, you can also do colors that are primaries. So you could do, I believe Michael Proctor, one of our other painters, is doing a blue-red fade on this dragon. So in the middle you could get purple, or you could just do a blue-red. But because blue and red do mix to make something, you could get away with that as well. Hey, Inara. All right, now I want to get my walnut and try to put in a pupil, a very, very thin slit pupil down the middle of that orange. I don't know if the orange is going to be broad enough. That's my worry here. I may need to broaden it out a little bit. So why don't I do that? My gut says I need more room, so I'm going to listen to my gut. And I'm losing some of my red, so I'm going to bring some of it in. I also want to bring in some red near the top of the eye. There we go. That's looking good. Now I'm going to bring in the orange again. To paint over that little bit of white I did. Now let's bring in our dark pupil. Tiny bit of walnut on my brush. It's going to be thinned walnut too, because I don't want to go too far, and I'm unloading a lot of paint off my brush. If you do a little detail like this, and it's so important, then you want to control it completely, and that means that there we go. That means you have very little paint on your brush. There. I'm going to go up to yellow on these eyes. We're going to go up to a very orange yellow though, because we've been going up with oranges. So we're going to do lantern. Probably going to mix it with just a little bit of white to make it cover better, so that I can do very small specks. So we're not done with these eyes, not by a long shot. Need to get my pokey tool out though. My lantern yellow is getting sad. All right. Let's get our lantern yellow out here. So now we've got a core color, a Pathfinder color, a Bones color, and another Bones color. Those are our colors. These are pretty good volcanic and fire and generally bright orangey reds colors. Now I want a little bit of white to see if I can get this yellow to play. Need a little bit sharper of a point. Need to unload my brush a little bit more. Now, if I really want to put a sclera, and I want to give the idea that the eye is rotating, I will come in with some dark color back here. And then I will get some white. And then I can get some pink. And I gotta trim up the bottom of that a little. That's not too bad. I think I want a little bit of a stronger line here. And a little bit of a stronger border here. And now I need a white catch light in the eye. I also need to maybe go back here and kind of fuzz out the dark on this rim here. Putting a little bit of magma over it. Oh, too much. Put some water on that to take it right off. All right, let's get this eye dried off. And then we'll put a light in it. I also took a little bit of my walnut off. Need to fix that. Eyes are titchy things. And of course, they're one of the more important features of any miniature, but especially dragons. You want them to be just perfect. There we go. Bright white highlight. And I kind of like that. Now we could come back in and also put some fan shapes in the iris if we wanted. Like we could make little radiating lines, but I don't know that I need it. The more I interrupt the orange, the more we'll lose the brightness of it. So I think I'm going to sit there for now, and I'm going to repeat this on the other side. do need to put some water into my sunrise orange and my lantern yellow. There we go. All right. Need a little bit brighter orange here. Then need to darken it. Blend it in. Neutrals. However, dark blue would be my, if you want a color, I'd say dark blue, Inara. If you want a neutral, I think dark brown or cream. The hot pink makes it difficult, but if your blue is dark enough, like Ritterlich, it should work. Make sure your teal is intense enough for your hot pink. All right, so now white. Underpainting. Again, whenever you want a bright color, underpaint in white. Yeah, I'd go with like dark browns, like black and brown. Whenever you get in a color corner, you usually your next answer should be to consider neutrals. If you seriously want a third color, then you could try some other things, but I will almost, when you're in danger of getting in a color corner, I will almost always ask where your neutrals are, because it's just an easy answer that will not get you in trouble generally. And now, let's see. Now I need a little bit more light around that. Putting light around the pupil. In this case, I'm going to go in with yellow and orange. Helps you to see it. Helps it to stand out. Then with a little bit more yellow. At the top of the eye. And then with some white. off the back of the eye. To rotate it more toward the front. Oh, I'm a little too far with that. Whenever you just lay down a color, you can immediately rinse your brush, grab some water, and scrub it off. Hit the reset button. You won't take off stuff underneath it generally. Oh, I totally forgot that piece of tooth there. Got a little bit too much dark on that tooth and not enough light. There, much better. All right, now let's try this eyeball again. Or I should say the back of the eyeball. Focus the eye more toward the front. Do some white underpainting so the membrane will show up. You can go a little bit over if you want. You can always trim it up with more walnut. Yep, thanks for coming, Kodiak. It was good to see you. We'll be back tomorrow. Probably with the dragon head actually attached to the neck. There we go, a little bit of trim up. Better. Then a little bit of the pink back here. And again, I overshot a little bit, but I can trim that up with some walnut once it dries. And then a little tiny bit of highlight on that pink. That, a little bit too much. I want the eye to look very trim. But it's easy to kind of lose it. There we go. There we go. Those eyes show up really well. Is there a contrasting color? They're also complementary. The orange is complementary to the blue. So, and they're very bright. They're small, very bright points. So they show up very well. Could also have gone with kind of a bloody red and it would have worked just as well, but I have a fondness for yellow highlights in eyes, so decided to go orangey instead. I can go in and darken a little bit of that red if I want to on this side, I think. And be pretty good. There. All right. Well, we still have time. So I guess I'll grab the dragon body and glue our dragon head onto it. Unless I want to, yeah, that's probably what I'm going to do. And then I can base coat these horns. So let's first of all grab our dragon body and see if we need to do anything before we stick it on. Like, will those horns get totally, So I can reach underneath the horns. That was my big question. Can I reach underneath the horns if I attach the dragon head? So we have a dragon head. And we do have a little bit of mold lining here going on these horns. These horns are just full of like tiny little mold lines. I got the one over there. I didn't get the one over there. Let's see here. Let me get out my files. Want a slightly rounded file. I'm going to wrap the dragon head in wrap so that I can hold it without taking off the paint I just put onto it. And I'm going to see if I can pile up with just a little bit. This area is slightly recessed, so it's a little bit annoying. Yeah, I think that's going to be okay. Yeah, that'll be all right. Mold lines are annoying. Yeah, these are, if these weren't so shallow, I would get out the green stuff. As it is, I think I'm going to get out the knife for the other side. Mold lines are annoying. There we are. Yeah, I think we'll be okay. I'll have to put a little extra brush on primer on those. Otherwise, I think this is going to fit together pretty well. I'm going to need a bigger piece of bubble wrap to hold my dragon shortly. The head seems to fit on fairly flush. We may have a little green work to do, but I think we can pretty much stick it on. So I'm going to do that. Could use my more gap filling super glue, but I'll go with Zap-A-Gap because that's what I have right next to me. And we'll just set it on there. Make sure that it's lined up. It's a little wobbly. That's why I think there's going to be a little bit of green stuff to do. Dragon has a neck. Hello, everyone. I have a neck. Now I can talk. Because I have lungs. So we'll let that sit. Since I used a fair amount of super glue, it's going to take me a little bit to have that set. Here's the body. I have the legs on. The legs didn't really get in the way, so I just threw the legs on. She's very chonky. And I should get out my brush on a primer so I can prime over those horns where I took all the stuff off of them. And if there are really, really shallow mold lines left, then the primer can be used to kind of fill in and level those. You want to always shake the Reaper brush on primer a lot. It's a really fine primer that will stick to glass even. So it's tough, but because it's so fine and strong, it does settle out. So you do want to shake it so you can hear the little bead clatter a bit. That is a piece of bent. There we go, flashing. Doing pretty well here. All right, dragon, sit, stay. Ah! The head pops off. I should have known. It was a trap. All right, dragon, we're not going to sit you that way. This is the problem. This is the problem with the dragon. There. Now I have to sit it somewhere else. Luckily, I have a base. Mm-hmm. And she does balance on her base pretty well. So if the head will stay when I have her balanced on her base, then I'll let her dry this way. It's a lot of scales. I mean, there are definitely fast ways to paint scales and to paint dragons, but yes, this is a lot of scales. This is why I don't want to paint the entire dragon on stream. Alrighty, let's get some of this primer. As we let her head set, mix up our primer. The primer should be pretty much equivalent to what our paint is in consistency out of the bottle. If you wonder if you have shaken it enough, if it seems more watery than typical MSP, then you haven't shaken it enough. It's one of the ways to tell. I almost always do like a 5-to-1 as far as the, thinning it. I do like to thin it. You can thin it more than that and just put on 2 coats, just like with any base coat. And you can airbrush the Reaper primer, just like, since you can thin it, you can airbrush it. Works great through an airbrush. Do be aware, you want to clean that airbrush fast. You don't want to let it sit around. Like I said, this primer can stick to glass. That means it's very tough and very tenacious to get off surfaces once it's fully dried. And with that in mind, you definitely want to be cautious and make sure that you don't clog up your airbrush. It's going to be a royal beast to unclog. Okay, so I wanted even a little bit more. If I can see brush strokes when I put on the primer, it's not thin enough. I want it to be self-leveling. I want to be able to drag a brush through it and watch it close up. So I'm going with another drop of water. That's a lot smoother. But yeah, if you see big, thick brush strokes that are kind of standing up off the surface, you've got too thick a primer, in my opinion. That primer is at the level where it can obscure detail, which sometimes you want to when you're painting over a mold line and you're trying to fill it in. But I like to attack that selectively and to generally work with our primer much thinner than that. I can always apply a slightly thicker application. Yeah, well, because they're meant to stick very tenaciously to smooth surfaces, HM Road Dogs. I mean, they are formulated to do that, and that's why they're a pain, but yeah, don't let them sit in your airbrush. Just going to put a real thin coat down here, just because I'm going to pretty much wrap it around this horn. I've got a place on the other side I need to prime as well. The head is sticking on at least for now. Thinking about giving this dragon like gold caps on her horns, like a World of Warcraft dragon. Technically, you could take the last part and make it gold. No, I just use my mixing brush, HM Road Dog. So the brush I'm already abusing, I use that for priming. Or I'll use a synthetic if I'm doing brush on primer. Synthetic brush so it won't wreck it. Or if it does wreck it, I'm only out a few bucks. So really, the answer is I use a non-special brush. Right now this is my mixing brush, so it's a cheap sable that I've been abusing. Yep, yeah, always thin your primer. If you're using brush on, there's no reason not to. You can always put on another coat. Just kind of keeping an eye on what I'm doing here. Wrapping the primer around the horn. And on this side we have a little bit of area that we also took primer off of, so we're going to wrap this primer all the way around the horn. And I really don't mind if a little bit of this horn texture gets filled in. It's only going to be a little bit because I've thinned my primer, so it's not going to fill it in nearly as much as you think it will. Since I thinned this, this is pretty much almost a 5:2 at this point. I think it is actually a 5:2. So it's quite thin. And even if it looks thick when you apply it, it's not gonna, like most of that's water, it's gonna evaporate, or a lot of it's water anyway. Most of the time I use spray primers, but when you do post cleaning on a model where your spray primer has showed you that there are flaws that you need to remove, then I come back in with the brush on. There. Let's take a look at these smaller horns. Did I have any cleaning on them? No, but I do have a spot I want to kind of cover up. There. Okay. And that pretty much took up our last bit of time. Awesome. So we are set and prepped to begin horns tomorrow. Getting these horns figured out. In retrospect, I probably could have held off attaching the head just if I was going to sculpt any part of the horn to look like it had a cap on it. But I think I can manage. I think I can do that just because of the sculpt, the way the sculpt is. I should be able to paint it that way without worrying too much. So yeah, we're gonna try to do that. I think give her like kind of gold caps on her horns. So yes, there we go, everybody. What we did today is we finished up eyeballs on our dragons. We finished up the mouth. Yeah, we blocked in the horns. So now we are part of a gigantic dragonly body here with a gigantic lashing tail. Your fingers are shifted too far, green users. Your keyboard. Thanks, Goblin Squire. Yeah, it's getting there. I don't know if you saw the wing, Goblin Squire, but that's what the wing looks like. So actually, let's just do it. So if we slot it in. Her wings are pretty vertical. Hold on, I got this to go in yesterday. Oh well, you get the idea. So yeah, we're getting there. We only have a few more days. Yeah, jewelry. I want gold caps on her horns. Heck, if I did actually resculpt the chest, I could even give her like a necklace if I wanted to. A big amulet or something. But yeah, Bone 6 stream. We're coming down to the end of the Kickstarter, everybody. So it should get exciting. We should see how far we're going to go. I hope you all have fun. You're keeping an eye on the Bone 6. And yeah, it's a good day. I hope you have a great one, and we will be back tomorrow And we'll work more on horns. Maybe we'll block in some neck scales just for fun. Just for fun, right? Alrighty, everybody. Have a great one, and I'll see you again tomorrow.